Here we have a Sony FS7. This is an amazing camera, which is the reason we decided to invest a great deal of effort to add support for it into our Intelli-G long-range unit. The setup that we see here involves having a USB Wi-Fi dongle on your Sony FS7. The only wires connected to the camera are the DC cable, which you can of course replace by using a battery. We have a HDMI cable to see the image from the Sony FS7 on our screen. We have a RC receiver connected to the Intelli-G long-range unit. These two units are powered by 5 volts from this source, but it could be a battery, doesn't have to be this source in particular. And we have the remote controller. If you are not familiar with RC systems, this remote controller connects to this receiver via radio, and the working range is between 1 and 2 kilometers and could go even further than that depending on the frequency that your system is working on. And the receiver gives signals to the Intelli-G, which in turn communicates to the camera via Wi-Fi. The fact that it communicates via Wi-Fi is very important because this means if your camera is mounted on a gimbal, you don't have to worry about any wires impeding the gimbal movement. And another great feature is the fact that Intelli-G only requires very few channels to control your camera functionality. We are going to use in this example this 2-position switch here, this multiple position switch here, and this knob here. So that's it. With only these 3 we are going to control the camera. Let's put this on its first position. It is now set on position 1, and by using this knob you can see that the aperture is changing because this first position corresponds to aperture. The second position corresponds to shutter speed, and again by moving right and left we can adjust the position. It can also work with shutter angle if you prefer that. We then have ISO, and we can adjust the ISO to any value we want in the same manner. Then on the 4th position we have focus. You can see that the focus is now set to the box in front of the camera. It is now set to 0.5 meters, and we are going to rec focus right now and move it further away. And you can see it goes to 2 meters, 7 meters. We are going to bring it back now. And it is now back to the box in front of the camera. The 5th option here is zoom. Because we have a power zoom lens, we can also control zoom. But if you have cinema lenses, professional lenses, you might want to use other systems to control your camera lens, and that can be connected as well to Intelli-G. We will show more about that later. And we even have another option here to adjust the picture profile. So the list of functions that you assign to your remote controller, it all depends on the things that you want to do with your camera remotely. This switch here of course controls the rec. In order to set up this system, you need to use a simple mobile app that comes with Intelli-G. This app enables you to select which of the RC channels you want to use to control your camera and map those channels in a very intelligent way to control the camera functionality. So as you have seen, only 3 channels were used to control a great deal of camera functionality, but it can control even more functionalities depending on the RC system that you are using and the channels that you have available. And to show you how flexible Intelli-G is, we are going to show a different scenario also involving FS7, but with a different input controlling system. This is a simple thumb controller which we have connected to Intelli-G. Let's assume you have your FS7 mounted on a gimbal, on a handheld gimbal, or on a rig which prevents you from accessing the camera buttons. To adjust the settings of your camera, you would have to put the rig down make the adjustments, pick the rig back up and so on until you are satisfied with your adjustments, or to have someone there for you, present at all times, to make the adjustments for you. To address this issue and to save you precious time and effort, we have implemented support for such simple controllers, which you can easily mount on your handheld rigs and have them accessible at all times to make the necessary adjustments. But before I show you how it works, we have this prototype here. We are currently working on developing a product which will include everything you need and not have to do any such setups, which might be too complicated. But until that time, it is not really too much trouble to connect a simple joystick to Intelli-G. It's quite easy to set it up using the mobile app. And what Intelli-G basically does, it enables you to control a $10,000 camera with the use of a $1 thumb controller. This thumb controller has two axes. It has a horizontal axis and a vertical axis. The horizontal axis we can use to select the current function that we want to adjust. The color on the Intelli-G indicates the currently selected function, and you can change the mappings between the functions and the colors in the mobile app. The blue color indicates aperture, so if I move up and down the thumb controller, we are adjusting aperture. By going right, we are selecting the next function. This time is shutter speed. Right, again, LED is red now, indicates ISO. We also have zoom racking mapped on it. And of course, focus racking. We are now on 0.5 meters, and let's move it further. We are now 1.5 meters. Let's bring the focus back to the box in front. And if we go to the right again, because we only set 5 functions, we are now back on the first function, but you can virtually set any number of functions. And of course we have a button here which simply triggers the recording. But to show you the real power of Intelli-G, let's assume you are shooting documentary work and you want to be able to change the modes, the shooting modes of your camera as quickly as possible. For instance, we are now in full HD slow motion, 150 FPS, and we want to go to 4K. In order to do so, we would have to go into the camera menu and press a lot of buttons and spend a lot of time while doing so. This is why we have implemented scripting support in Intelli-G, so we can create custom scripts to enable us to make complex changes in the camera. So one of the scripts I'm activating by long pressing this to the right, and you can see now the camera is being controlled by the Intelli-G as if it were you using the camera buttons. So we are now in 4K, Ultra HD, 25p, but it could be also Cinema 4K or any setting that we choose to put in those custom scripts. And let's say we want to go back to full HD slow motion now. If I long press to the left, you can see the Intelli-G doing the work for me and make me feel like a boss.